Hello, students. Welcome to another fresh session. And I'm Dr. Shayanti Talwar. So, in this session, we are going to discuss the poem The Bird Sanctuary by Sarojini Naidu. Now, before we go to the poem, a quick note about Sarojini Naidu. She was born in the year 1879 and she passed on 2 years after India got its independence from the British rule, which was in the year 1949. So that's the year she passed on. And Sarojini Naidu actually enjoys the status of being one of India's foremost poets. She wrote in English and she did her completed her initial education from Hyderabad. She was born into a Bengali family, and before she got married to Telugu, she was known as Sarojini Chattopadhyay. She was a prominent figure in the Indian independence movement, and she participated in the Dandi March of 1930 and also the Quit India movement of 1942. She was arrested on both occasions along with other freedom fighters. For Naidu, her love for India served as her poetic muse. So, her love for the country was what fueled her creativity and what led her to come up with her beautiful poetic compositions. In fact, in many of her poems, she depicts the rich and diverse colors of Indian life, natural as also human. And in this particular poem, she in fact amalgamates, she brings together the visual, the oral, the tactile, and olfactory images. So, in a sense, it's a plethora of images that appeal to different senses: our sense of smell, our sense of touch, our sense of sight, our sense of hearing, and our sense of taste. And she creates this idyllic heaven not just for different species of birds or varieties of birds, but also, by extension, a safe space for tired and exhausted souls who need rest and who need peace. She describes in great detail all the birds that make their home in this garden. It also seems to be a metaphor. So, this garden then is not a garden. At one level, yes, it is a garden where birds come to take refuge or seek refuge. And they nestle in the trees and they find their space to hibernate or to relax. But on another level, this garden is also symbolic of the ideal nation state or that world which can be so inclusive as to be able to accommodate all kinds of people, right? So here she says the gardener has created this kind of a space where all birds can seek refuge, and similarly we need to work towards building a nation which can have different types of people in it, and a nation where everyone can find a place for themselves, right? So the poem is very short. It has just three stanzas and it has names of lots of birds, and it's interesting because the names evoke colors, and they evoke movement, and they evoke flight and a lot of sounds, the fluttering of wings and so on. So let's go to the poem now. In your quiet garden wakes a magic tumult of winged choristers that keep the festival of dawn. Blithely rise the carols in richly cadenced rapture from lyric throats of amber, of ebony, and fawn. So, here, what she's describing dawn. Okay, she's describing what happens when the sun rises. So, I'm sure most of us, all of us know what happens. We hear birds chirping in the trees, right? So, that's what happens when it is dawn. So, what she says is, in your quiet garden, imagine this quiet garden. She's addressing the gardener, that is the creator of the garden. So she says, in your quiet garden wakes a magic tumult. Wakes to be awake or to wake up. So, wakes what? a magic tumult, commotion. But it's not a, a commotion that is irritating or disturbing. It's a magical commotion. So suddenly, so all night this garden is completely quiet and silent, and suddenly there is a lot of suddenly everything seems to be awake and alive. And what is this tumult or commotion of? It is of winged choristers. So choristers are people who sing in the church choir. So she's comparing birds to singers. So she says these are winged choristers. Winged because birds have wings. So she says the winged choristers, so the birds have woken up and they are singing in their joyous notes, and it's as if they are celebrating sunrise. So she calls it the festival of dawn. So it's so you sing when you're happy or you sing during festivals. So she says it's as if it's a festival every day, or the birds celebrate the sunrise every day, and that's how they wake up and they start chirping, and they make their sounds, and they welcome the day. And blithely rise the carols in rich cadenced rapture. So the way they sing, the carols seem to rise. Now the carols are compositions that are sung in the church. So she is using the church related music to describe how she feels when the birds sing in the garden. And see how it evokes visual images of the birds and auditory images, auditory senses. It appeals to our sense of hearing by evoking not just the sound made by the birds, but also the songs which are sung in the church. And which are the throats that these songs are coming out of? From lyric throats, which means from musical throats of amber, of ebony and fawn. So you can't see the birds, but you can see the trees and the foliage and the leaves and everything. So amber is the color of fruits and flowers, ebony is the color of bark, so it's dark brown, and fawn is again the greenery. So amber is a rich brown or yellow, and fawn is green, and ebony is black or brown. So she says in from different parts of the tree seems to erupt or emerge or emanate different sounds made by birds, which are as beautiful as the church choir singing. Now this is your first stanza. Now let's look at the second stanza. The bulbul and the oriole. Now, these are two kinds of birds. The bulbul and the oriole, the honey bird and shama, two more birds, two more species. The bulbul and the oriole, the honey bird and the shama, flit among high boughs that drip with nectar and with dew. So, what are these birds doing? They flit. Flit is darting. Sometimes you will see birds just fly from one branch to another. That's called flitting. Okay, so they flit among high boughs. Boughs are branches of trees. So flit among the high branches of trees because the trees are obviously very tall, and these branches are dripping with nectar and with dew. So there are flowers in the trees probably, and the flowers are dripping nectar, and they are also dripping with dew which has collected overnight. Upon the grass and wandering gull parades its sea-washed silver. The hoopoe and the kingfisher, they're bronze and sapphire blue. So again, she's evoking more and more visual imagery by talking about seagulls that are white in color. So it's like they are a sea washed silver. So what's the color? Sea washed, because gulls are generally known to fly around the sea, right? And then the hoopoe and the kingfisher. Now the kingfisher is a rare bird, and these birds are again flashing their bronze and sapphire blue colors. So this garden is like this magical place where you get to see the most exotic of birds, and you get to hear the most exotic of music. It's almost like a symphony that the birds produce, right, in a kind of chorus. Wild grey pigeons, dreaming of a home amid the tree tops, fill their beaks with silken down and slender banyan twigs. But the jade green gypsy parrots are only gay marauders and pause upon their sunward flight to plunder red ripe figs. So she's then moving on to maybe some other less exotic birds. So she's talking about wild gray pigeons who may have come to the garden thinking of building nests in the treetops. So they dream of a home amid the treetops because pigeons are always looking for a place where they can have their nests and where they can have where they can lay their eggs. If you notice pigeons, they are always on the lookout for the right place where they can build a nest. And what do these pigeons do? They are filling their beaks with silken down and slender banyan twigs. So they bring, in order to build their nest, they need twigs. Twigs are these small, very small parts of branches, dry branches. So the smallest part is a twig. And silken down, some leaf, some part of a leaf, some hair, some thread, that has to go with the twigs so that the nest is sturdy. It has a structure because of the twigs, and at the same time it's soft, so they line it. They create an inner lining so that when the chicks come out of the eggs, they find it soft, otherwise the twigs can hurt them. Upon the grass, but the jade green gypsy parrots. So, what color are the gypsy parrots? Why does she call them gypsy? Because parrots don't have a permanent home. They flit from tree to tree. So they are like gypsies. They are like nomads. They keep changing their homes, and they are jade green. Now, jade is a natural mineral stone that is of green color. So she's talking about green parrots, and the color is jade green, and they are only gay marauders. Marauders are people who come, who just eat, spend time for some time, and then they leave. So they are very happy marauders. They just come to the garden, they make the most of the garden, they enjoy the fruits and flowers, they fly from tree to tree, and then they leave, right? And pause upon their sunward flight to plunder red ripe figs. So, what do these parrots do? What is their mission? They are flying towards the sun, as if the sunward flight, and their mission is to plunder, loot, take away, take for themselves red ripe figs. So figs are a kind of fruit, so the parrots have clearly come to eat, and once they've eaten, they've enjoyed, they will leave. So every bird has a different purpose in the garden. And the closing stanza, she says, in your gracious garden, there is joy and fostering freedom, nesting place, and singing space for every feathered thing. O master of the birds, grant sanctuary and shelter also to a homing bird that bears a broken wing. So she says, this garden is so gracious, it's so full of grace, it is so full of bounty, it is such a blessed space that it allows birds to move freely. All the birds are free, and none of them are scared of being hunted or preyed upon, or they don't have a fear of their life, because this is such a beautiful space created by you. And she says, oh master of the birds. So she's appealing to the gardener. So in that sense, if you look at it from the nation's point of view, she's appealing to the people who are making the new nation of India, that just like this garden, which is so beautiful, which has given shelter, which has given a space, and which has given freedom, which ensures freedom to every feathered thing, which means to every bird, also please grant sanctuary and shelter. I hope you can grant shelter also to a bird that has a broken wing. So, not every bird can fly. Maybe some birds are injured. There's an injured bird. A bird that is unwell. There's a bird with a broken wing. Please guarantee that bird also a life, a space, in this garden of yours. So, at the level of the nation, she's saying there could be people who are broken, who are tired, who are hurt, who are not as well off, or who are not as strong as the other people in the nation. But please guarantee freedom, please guarantee a place to all kinds of citizens in this new nation of India. So that's her message. And primarily, perhaps she uses the imagery of the bird, she uses the symbolism of the bird to denote a free nation. Right? So the bird is a metaphor, and because birds are free to fly wherever they want to, so a compound can't restrict them. So, because birds have the ability to fly, and sky is their domain, right? The sky is their domain. So, which is why she is using the metaphor of birds and not of animals to denote the new nation of India, where every citizen is free, because India is now a free country. So every citizen is like a bird, and citizens can be as varied, as diverse as the different birds that come to this garden. So you can have citizens who are very bright and beautiful, like the kingfisher. You can have citizens who are a little, who take advantage of the country, like the parrots. You can find citizens and people who want to make India their home, like the pigeons. And you can have citizens that work for India, that sing for India, that strive to make India this better, more beautiful place, like the uh, singing birds that get up in the morning and celebrate this new nation state every day. But you can also have citizens who are broken, hurt, injured, tired. They don't have money, they don't have a place to go, they may have lost someone, their families may have got scattered, right? Either during the partition, or maybe during in the course of the freedom movement. But please guarantee them shelter also. And ideally, that is what a nation state should be, like, where it guarantees freedom, it guarantees security, it guarantees safety, and it guarantees equal rights and freedom to all its citizens. So this is what Sarojini Naidu is stating in the form of a poem, which is almost like a prayer. So that's the poem for you. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for attending the session.